Killed him. All right, guys, so as you guys can actually see, the M5 is in the back of the garage. The M5 is officially sold. I did announce it on Instagram and I did email back a bunch of the guys that were asking. M5 is sold as far as I can say, and I did receive a deposit from the buyer. I'm not going to go into any details about the sale or anything like that about the car. Just as sort of like a little privacy for the buyer. I don't know if he really cares about stuff like that, like the numbers or the details, but before I go ahead and just like lay it all out, I figured I would ask him first, so that's gonna have to wait. If you guys are interested on the sale price and all that stuff, you'll have to probably stay tuned for another video. So today's video, I wanna spend a little time talking on my way through about ownership of the M5, and we're also gonna jump in it, so I'm really not gonna be filming much in the garage here, but I do wanna do a little intro about what to expect. It is sold. If you guys didn't know, the rationale for me selling the car, go watch the other video, I did kind of explain it, was I would like a different spec in the future. I've always liked the blue cars, or if I could get my hands on an Alpine White E39 M5, that'd be really sweet, which will require obviously selling this one first. But in the meantime, I am going to get a different vehicle, something very different than the M5, to daily drive. As much as I love daily driving, the ZHP back here, it's 17 years old as well and has weird quirks. So it's really good around town, but I want something a little different in the meantime. So the search will be on and I will clue you guys in on that. So that's the rationale there. Getting hung up in keeping all these things forever, cars, objects, things like that, I think prohibits you from taking steps forward. So this is maybe it feels like a step back, but to take a couple steps forward, that's kind of how it feels for me. So that's why I'm doing it. It's bittersweet. I love the freaking car. I'm gonna take you guys actually over here to see the car. I did drive it today. We did a couple of errands and it's just beautiful. It's great. The AC blows cold. It was literally 90 degrees today. And we took it out because I want to enjoy it a couple more times, probably hopefully more than a couple times before I sell it. I could have taken the M3 out, but I figure I'm going to have the M3 for a while now, so I wanted to kind of enjoy it. It's in such good shape, and it's just so cool to like get this car into the right shape of, you know, representing what the E39 should represent. Carbon black is a really, you know, nice color on these cars. Obviously it has like a little blue hue to it, and it's a really nice option car. You know, have the spoiler, you have the split folds, and you know, the wood in the inside is not my favorite, but I guess it's easily changeable. So, you know, this car has really been so good to me. It's never left me stranded, and yeah, it's beautiful. So let's get inside and let's go for a little drive. Well, before we go for a drive, I do want to give you guys a nice little POV. The inside of this car just looks so right. I did the F10 shift knob, kind of makes the car look a little newer. This will be updated for the new owner. He's asked me to put a different screen in there because this one has some dead pixels, and we can get a little mileage read just for fun. It says 91, it's freaking hot. So 138,620, and man, this thing just looks so good. So Marissa went out with me today. We ran a few errands, like I said, and we were on the highway, and you know, I dropped it down a couple gears. She's like, I can't believe you're selling this car. You love it so much. And she even said, you know, like, she loves it. She appreciates like even just the cold start. It doesn't sound like much, but it just sounds so proper. I don't know how else to say it. And I'm like, man, you know what? Even if I regret it, instantly regret it, which I don't think I will immediately. I don't think I regret this sort of exchange of what I'm doing here. I'm like, even if I regret selling it and I really need one like right away, I'll just search for the spec that I really wanted. So, you know, that's really not like a bad place to be, is to get out of a spec that is really nice, but people just have their preference. Like that Amola E46 is pretty much the perfect spec for me. And it's funny, the M3, I actually did sacrifice the inserts of the seat, so I could sort of argue that selling that and getting a different M3 might be viable as well, but we don't want to get hung up on the other cars. That's why I don't feel like I'm going to be too torn or upset. It's going to be sad to see the car go, but as I mentioned, like worst case scenario, I'll just be on the hunt for another one. It's just a matter of when. All right, so let's get a start up. Obviously not cold start at all, but has a nice rumble. And you guys can see the screen is a little funky. I'll replace that. All right, let's go. All right, guys, we are setting off in the E39 M5. Always very close to the wall. That's okay. Don't forget safety. My neighbors are like, what the heck kind of contraption is going on? All right, so you can see the shifter. It's funny when I film, especially in this car, I try my best to, so you can see the shifter. I want the shifter in camera view because it kind of gains to the experience. But let's talk about the M5 and how much I love this damn car. And I've always said this phrase, like, it's such a joy to drive and it's such a happy car. It's like so amazing that I guess the first thing that I think about is like, this car is 17 years old. Mine's an 03 with 138,000 miles on it. And to be honest with you guys, I firmly believe that like this thing is better than most cars on the road. Yeah, it's older, so yeah, random things will happen, like, you know, a window regulator, or you have certain things that may leak over time, or a wheel bearing, and silly things that kind of wear out with over 100,000 miles on a high performance vehicle. But it's so funny. Every time I go out in this car, like, I thought I would kind of get sick of it. I really don't. Even at being relatively stock, like this car, I haven't really modified very much. So, you know, like, you'd think that maybe it's a little bit boring, but this car does not need much, guys. All right, so let's do a little takeoff. I was trying to be a little ginger on the acceleration. I don't like to slam into gears, but this car, well, especially it has like a clutch with like 10,000 miles on it, so like the drivetrain feels really crisp, and I could pop it into sport mode. So the video, like this video feels a little silly to do because, you know, I've talked about so much of this stuff in other videos, but, you know, I kind of want a nice send-off, and I want to do, really honestly, as many videos as I can of this car because I'm gonna miss it. And it was like a pivotal, you know, part of the channel, and a lot of you guys came to the channel because of the M5 and the following, because it's like, if you have an E39, even not an M5, if you have an E39, you're usually like very hands-on, and a lot of you guys are particular. You know, you want certain things a certain way, and you know why you want those things a certain way. So those guys and I, you know, tend to really like get along really well. And I know, like, initially I kind of like fought certain things, like I really wanted black grills, and I kind of enjoy the process of saying, you know what, you guys are dumb, I'm gonna do it anyways. And being wrong is kind of fun sometimes, because you sort of can appreciate the initial point of view that someone was sort of showing you. And it sounds kind of weird to say that, but like, I don't know, like, it's just kind of funny how that works, like with this car, whether it's you know, maintenance items or minor modifications like the shifter here, and the short shift kit. You can really like kind of go through the process of doing the research and then executing and then feeling really good about it. And sometimes that takes a couple of steps. You know, not great in the wintertime, as you would expect any kind of rear-wheel drive vehicle, unless you got snow tires on it. Faster than we should be going on these roads. It's just funny. The engine, I've talked about this in the M3 versus the M5 video, and the engine in this car, the S62 engine, I don't know what to say. I freaking love it. Like, it's like the perfect engine. And if you hear Steve Dinan talk about it, you've got to hear Steve Dinan talk about the engine in this car, because there is a reason why so many guys, I guess why it's praised so much. So we're going around, shift to third gear at 50 miles an hour. Little bit, out of the corner. I mean, I'm driving at, you know, like 6/10 right now, but it doesn't, I don't know, I don't really like to thrash the M5. I don't know what it is. It's such a happy engine, man. I tell you what, like, have I said that enough, guys? That this is a happy car. So I'm kind of struggling for what words to say. So what I actually find amazing about a car like this, it's older, you know, it's 17, and with age, you know, there's different styles and things that come out. Different cars, different styles, different sounds. This car looks perfect. And there's actually not that many people who probably disagree. It seems like even non-car people can see, like, yeah, that looks, it's clean lines, whatever. The proportions are right from every angle. And I love my M3 more than I can probably describe. This car looks better than the freaking M3. I mean, the Bangle era with the E60 M5, yeah, that car looked disgusting when it came out, and weird that it kind of aged almost better than when it came out, if you kind of understand. With all the swoopy lines going on, the E60 is a little more subdued compared to a lot of new cars, so it sort of aged better. With this car, it looked amazing when it came out, and it looks the same, if not better, now. And that's not something you can say about many manufacturers or car makes or anything. And that's not even an M5 thing, that's just the E39 in general. Because I have the ZHP, the E30, the E46, and it really is a good looking car, but then I do look at it and say, oh man, it's a good looking car, whatever. But this car, every angle, the bottom, the top, top down, bottom up, sides, looks so good. Yeah, I normally only go to like 6,500 at the maximum, usually like around 6 on the higher end if I'm really revving it out. But let's talk about something I actually wish I did to this car, and that's an exhaust. This car sounds nice, the engine, induction noise, great. It's a V8, it's 5 liter, 4.94, whatever, 5 liters. Sounds nice, okay? But this thing needs an exhaust. I came close to doing an exhaust a few times, but I just got distracted with some maintenance items, and then I was moving, and you know, I just never got around to it. You know, I know that sounds like a crappy excuse, but if you have one of these cars, if you do really anything, I know the Dynon mufflers don't do a lot, but as long as you do something, it's hard to make these cars not sound good, to be honest with you. Even the M3, like, you have to be careful with what you do with the M3, because the how high pitched the engine kind of sounds and stuff like that. So a car like this, it takes, I guess, a very dumb person to make it sound bad. So when you're doing an exhaust, in my opinion, all the ones I've heard, they all sound pretty good. So it's just a matter of taste at that point. And let's talk about something I wish I didn't do to the car, which actually isn't really a big deal at all. I had those LED angel eyes, and I also had LED fog lights for not too long, maybe 6 months or so. And it was a nice look. It cleaned up the front of the car, but the angel eyes kept burning out, and they were cheap, and then the other companies, they seemed like they had that issue too, and I was just over it. The halogen bulbs are yellow, and they do look a little older, and I do like kind of an updated look like the Lux angel eyes on the M3, but like, this car, it's like, why are you trying to fix something? There's nothing really wrong. So you definitely don't need like aftermarket headlights or taillights in this car. I think honestly, if you do something like that, it kind of ruins it. Like, the car the car is plenty good looking and doesn't need you to fiddle around with stuff like that. So if you're looking at one of these cars, really what you want to look at is, does the owner love it, or did the owner love the car? And that'll be able to explain to you, at least partially, maintenance, which at a 17-year-old M car is very important. If you get into a car that literally needs everything, forget it. You're probably not going to have time to enjoy. It's going to be clapped out and it's going to have all kinds of issues. You definitely want someone who's extremely particular, which thankfully for these cars, you know, more often than not, the owners are pretty particular. I think a lot of you are M5 owners. You probably watch the channel, and if you're a prospective M5 owner, you know, maybe you have a 5 or E39, it's not an M5. It does live up to the hype. I know there's a few guys that argue, you know, the 540 is better for the money, but it just seems like every 540 guy, nothing against them, like they're the same kind of guys as the M5 guys, but the common attitude seems to be them trying to prove why, you know, their choice is better than an M5, because an M5 costs significantly more than a 540, the E39, and things like that. So I would just save the money if you can. If you have a 540 and you want an M5, I mean, the M5 is 100 more horsepower, isn't it? I mean, geez. You know, just that alone, I would think having that engine, you know, the S62 and 100 more horsepower, I know it's a lot more money, but I don't know. And it's a car that doesn't really depreciate that much. You know, depending on the condition and, you know, how you treat it and the prospective buyer. You know, it seems like if you're getting into it, you don't really have a high downside besides spending money on maintenance, which for some people obviously is a significant downside if you don't really know how to work on your car. But to be honest with you guys, this car's not that hard to work on. Every car has its quirks, but there's only been a few times where I'm like, why BMW? Why did you put this bolt, you know, right next to the subframe or whatever it happened to be when we were doing, you know, some suspension stuff. All right, so let's take this opportunity. A little squirrely. I have traction on. I usually have it on just because it's not worth it. And I sold the car. Like, the last thing I want to do is freaking crash it into the trees. Yeah, this car, it lets you know that it means business. Don't forget that. It's older and it does not have as much power as newer cars, performance cars, but like, this car is no slouch. The sunshade actually flew back a little bit. So that's fun. All right, so here's a point of view on the Canon G7X. This was what I was using to film the road, but have the gas light on, of course. Still have like 50 miles to empty, so I'm not bleeding it dry. Yeah, so this is the what it's like to drive an M5. The point of view. Lots of you guys have seen that, but shift down here, wait for this little Hyundai to go, and we're still in third, but we got torque, man. We got torque, and we got a little turn here. I know this is like a silly narration, but like, why not? Third gear, still going. Could have been second, but yeah, see, I don't normally shift that late and I have to brake already. The brakes on this car are not bad. I mean, they're single piston, so they could be better, but I did, you know, different updated rotors and the pads up front. So of course, dang, this is a pretty serious turn here. I'd shift down again, but I only have one hand here since I'm filming. And I think that's a cop. I'm gonna lower the camera. Yeah, that's definitely a cop. I wonder if he saw me filming him. All right, guys, we're home. Let's get out of the car and wrap this thing up. Oh, one of the favorite things about this car. closing the doors. Also opening them, but closing's pretty good too. All right, so not the last video with the M5, don't worry, but this is one of many send-off slash exit videos. I might do a more specific video, and I understand that this was a little rambling, but I just love to talk about this car and share the car, and really any of the stuff I'm doing, whether it's garage stuff or car stuff or whatever it happens to be. I love sharing it, and that's why I started this channel. And I know, you know, selling a car or changing stuff, just like when I sold the Jeep. I had the Jeep Grand Cherokee for 4 years, over 4 years, and there were a handful of people like, oh, I'm leaving, and you know, that's fine. But I think more than anything is like we've shared stuff, we've learned stuff, and when you own something or when you have a passion for something, it's nice to sort of surround yourself with those people. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. That's what I've done for about 2 years with this car. That's what I'll do with this car and the beautiful cabinets in the back, which I cannot show you guys any more of that because that is going to be a video that I have not edited yet. So with that said, don't forget to comment below if you want me to talk about anything very specific for the M5 before it goes away. It'll probably be at least a few weeks before it gets officially picked up. I mentioned I already received the deposit, so as far as I'm concerned, it's sold. A couple things to wrap up on the car, you know, fixing a couple stone chips and things like that to get it prepped, and it will be officially not mine anymore very soon. So don't forget to comment below, and I will see you guys very soon.